What really separates high school from college? More and more, that line is getting blurrier, especially as dual enrollment programs expand across the country. In fact, during the 2022 to 23 school year, 16% of high school students took at least one dual enrollment course. These programs offer more than just early college credit. They give students access to rigorous coursework. They help ease the transition into college, and sometimes they'll even save time and money along the way. But how these programs are structured and what they actually mean for students, well, that varies a lot. In this episode, you'll hear from LaShawn Springer, Director of Inclusive Pedagogy at Macmillan Learning, in conversation with Siska Brutsaert, the principal of Bard High School Early College in the Bronx. Together, they'll unpack the model that Bard Early College has been refining for more than 21 years. This is the What and Who of EDU, and I'm passing it over to LaShawn to help us put some pedagogy in practice.
Welcome to the What and Who of EDU, where we bring you insights from the leading educators, researchers, and innovators shaping the future of teaching and learning. Whether it's exploring new trends in pedagogy, discussing the latest educational research, or diving into real-world classroom strategies, we're your guide to creating a more impactful, inclusive, and effective learning environment. I'm your host, LaShawn Springer. I'm so honored today to be joined by Dr. Siska Brutsaert, principal of Bard High School Early College Bronx, which first opened its doors to a new cohort of early college students in September of 2023. Dr. Brutsaert, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited for this conversation because I have been to Bard High School sites on many occasions, and it's always been a community where you could tell there was something special really happening within its halls. So before I go too far in my gushing over Bard High School, I think it would be great for those who are unfamiliar with the Bard High School model, if you could give us an overview of the model and who all is part of your community, and then we can get into more details as we continue on in terms of understanding more about your school.
So the Bard Early Colleges are a network of schools. There are now currently 10 Bard Early Colleges that are always a partnership between the local public school district and Bard College, which is a private college. So the schools are part of the school district, but at the same time, they're also a Bard institution. It's a unique kind of a partnership between a public and private institution, all for the benefit of the students that reside in those districts. So the Bard Early Colleges in New York City, there are now 4 of them. The first one opened in Manhattan in 2001. The second campus opened in Queens in 2008. We opened here in the Bronx in 2023, and Brooklyn just opened this fall in 2024. And then there are also the other Bard Early College schools that are in partnership with other school districts. So for example, Newark, Baltimore, Cleveland, DC, New Orleans, and Hudson.
That's awesome. Thank you for that overview. I'm not sure I actually realized that there were these other Bard affiliates as well outside of the New York area. So I appreciate also that tidbit of knowledge for my own self. I'm curious how you found your way to Bard, given that it is such a special community in terms of its setup and its model. What first attracted you to wanting to work in that particular community?
I am originally a research scientist. I earned my PhD in molecular immunology from Columbia University. And then I did a 1-year postdoc at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, France. It was at that point that I realized that I didn't want to continue in research, and I wanted to go back to a passion that I had had growing up, to be an educator. And I joined the New York City Teaching Fellows in 2005. And my first year, I was at Washington Irving High School by Union Square. And the following year, actually through 2 different avenues, I heard about this school, Bard High School Early College in the Lower East Side, that specifically hired teachers who had the credentials to be able to teach at the college level. As someone who has my doctorate and some experience at the college level, I thought, okay, well, this could be a really good fit for me. And I applied for a job and I was hired. So my first 5 years at Bard BSEC, we call it BSEC Manhattan, I was a full-time biology teacher. I taught both college level biology as well as some college level electives in the life sciences. And then I also taught some high school classes as well. And then in 2010, I became the Dean of Studies. And then for the next 10 years, I served in the role of part of the administrative team at BSEC Manhattan. I took I call it my COVID pit stop. I worked as an assistant principal in Westchester and then came back in 2023 to open this school.
Wow, you couldn't stay away. That's such a wonderful trajectory. I want to dig into that a little bit more because I think you'll have such a unique perspective having been a teacher and also now serving an administrative function. But before I do so, for those who are unfamiliar with the New York Teaching Fellows, do you mind just saying a little bit more about that program?
Sure. The New York City Teaching Fellows is an alternative certification program, which allows people who could be fresh out of college, undergrad, or career changers to, after a very short summer boot camp, be already placed in a school while at the same time working towards getting their master's in teaching. So those teachers have a transitional certificate that allows them to be in the classroom and teaching at the same time that they're working towards their master's to get a state certification.
One thing I want to pick up on, both from what you shared already about Bard and also when I was visiting, I felt like there was such an immense amount of, I was naming it like trust or respect. I thought about how amazing it must be for a young person to know that your teachers trust and respect in your capabilities and your abilities enough to say that in what would traditionally be grades 11 and 12, you now are going to take collegiate level courses and we trust in your abilities and your intellectual capacity to do so. So I'm just curious about the type of community you're engendering and what the relationship then is between students and faculty as a result.
I'll talk about two components of that. The first is that the Bard early colleges are a screened program. So that means that the students are writing an essay, sitting for a math assessment, and then also coming in for an in-person interview in order to be considered for admission. During the interview and during the assessment of the writing, we really are looking for students who are curious, who have a voice, and who really are eager and looking forward to doing rigorous academic work. The other piece of it is the faculty. These are people who have the credentials to teach at the college level, but for various reasons really love working with students of a younger age who see and understand that between the ages of 14 and 18, there's just a transformational growth that happens during that time and feel very committed and I think take responsibility for cultivating these very malleable, eager, curious minds at that age. So I think that faculty who join the Bard early colleges do have a real humanitarian part of their mission. It's very mission-driven work. So I think those two pieces really make for a community of students and teachers who are really committed to the mission of having students engaging in higher level academics at a younger age.
I love that there's such intention in terms of thinking about the young people that you're bringing in, but also intention in terms of thinking about the faculty that you would want to be on a team such as yours that has a real understanding of the purpose of education that perhaps is situated differently than you may find in other schools and other locations.
And I think another piece of it is that the teachers or the faculty are here on site and they're teaching both the ninth and the 10th graders as well as the early college students. So they're seeing, understanding, acknowledging, molding what they feel the students need in ninth and 10th grade in order to be successful in their classes later on as year ones and year twos. So all of our faculty teach both in the high school program as well as in the college program.
That's really important that they have an understanding what's coming ahead for their students and just thinking about then how are they scaffolding the curriculum to prepare their young folks for moving into those higher level classes. One thing that you all write very clearly about is upholding Bard's motto, which is a place to think, really thinking about engendering a community and a place and a space for that level of intellectual rigor and for that level of what I would think of also as young people having self-efficacy. I talk about self-agency for young people all the time, their advocacy just for themselves, but also for the things that they are learning and how they're taking ownership over their education. And I think that's so essential when we still do have these models of education where young people are expected to retain and regurgitate through rote memorization. So I'm wondering how you cultivate that type of community and how you co-create it specifically with your students, thinking about that motto, a place to think.
One of the core practices that all of the BARD institutions use comes from the Institute of Writing and Thinking, or IWT. And the Institute for Writing and Thinking at Bard College has developed specific strategies and techniques for students to write informally in the classroom in order to develop ideas, and also a way to build community around these practices. Students are put into workshops where they will be reading texts and then writing about them in various different formats. Some of the techniques, for example, are focused free writes. So that would be an open-ended prompt that students have to write for in response to for 3 to 5 minutes. Other techniques are things like believing and doubting. So taking one side of an argument and writing about it, and then taking the other side of the argument and writing about it. There's also loop writing, which could be a series of prompts that you're responding to. And so the workshop at the beginning of the year is a really great opportunity to build community. Some schools have them homogeneously per grade, and other schools do them heterogeneously. In the Bronx, for the past 2 years, we've had heterogeneous workshops. And the goal is also for the older students to show the younger students how it's done. Writing can be, especially for an incoming ninth grader, intimidating. Like, what if I write the wrong thing? There's a lot of hesitancy and the fear of being wrong that kids come in from middle school with. And so by having these informal writing workshops where, everything is okay and everybody shares what they wrote, and building that culture of it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to just say something silly. It's going to be accepted. And I think that's really part of the foundation that then these techniques spill over into the classroom.
I love that because one of the things that you said at the very beginning is that you are looking for young people who have a voice. And once you get there, you are really helping them to trust what that inner voice is and to share it really boldly and courageously with their community and within their spaces that they're occupying. You gave us a good segue, actually, for us to be thinking about practices in teaching and learning that you feel like have been really successful within the BARD model. And of course, not every single institution is set up in the same way as BARD, but there may be things that they can adopt or things that they can borrow from the BARD model. You've already started talking about the work that professionally you all are doing together as faculty to prepare, but anything in terms of your approaches and best practices as it relates to curriculum design, curriculum building, and scaffolding, would love to hear. And if you have any examples.
I think the question here is, what is college level work? And how do you define college level or early college work, academics? How is it different from, let's say, an AP curriculum? And that's a question that we revisit constantly over and over every year. Some of the ways that we try to get at that is by looking to see, so what are students learning in 100 level classes, in 200 level classes, in introductory biology, freshman writing seminar, those kinds of places. What do they need in order to be able to move on into a 200 or 300 level course if they transfer those credits and use the classes that they took with us as a stepping stone into going into higher level courses? So We can look at syllabi, we can look to see what other colleges are doing. We have meetups across the network. So this Friday, our math and computing faculty are going up to Bard College. They're going to be folks from all of the Bard Early College schools. They'll also be meeting with faculty at Bard College. Just 2 weeks ago, we had some of our US history teachers go up to Bard also for a faculty meetup, first year seminar. And these are times where faculty from the various campuses, as well as from Bard College, get together and say, what are some of the things that we're teaching? What are our approaches? What are the skills and competencies that our students are going to need if they go on to their next institution as potentially transfer students? So those are ongoing conversations. It's very hard. It's not something tangible. We can look to see like, okay, they need to know some of the fundamental concepts here in order to be able to go into that upper level class.
I think there's this real tug for educators. As you mentioned, there are lots of challenges that exist right now within the educational landscape and within education in general. And there's always traditionally been the tug between how do I create space for my continued development as a teacher and faculty member versus I've got content that I need to get through with my students. And so the idea that you have cohorts of US history teachers or cohorts of your math and science teachers who are spending time in terms of thinking not just about their own development, but what that means in service again of their students as they're building on skills and competencies, I think really speaks to, again, the type of community that you are engendering and cultivating.
I mean, I think that another real advantage is that these are teachers, professors who have taught at the college level and have the credentials to be able to teach at the college level, but it's a much more intimate classroom setting. It's not a big lecture hall. Chemistry is not 350 students. It's 22 kids that you're seeing 5 periods a week, maybe plus a double period lab. Typically, it's going to be the teacher that's running the lab as well as the class with the students. So the teachers really get to know the students as well in a way that I think at the college level can be lost sometimes. Maybe in small seminar type classes or depending on the school, there could be those small classes, but at the BSECs, it's a guarantee.
I love that. I think one of the conversations we were having earlier is that I did grow up in New York and I went to public school and I did have access to dual enrollment programs where I was going to a college for classes. In some ways, that felt wonderful. And I felt the sense of empowerment and independence. And in other ways, that was very, very hard. I think it's interesting that you all have chosen a model where your young people are still within this space with folks that they have built wonderful relationships with because as somebody who also has worked in schools, we recognize that they are still growing in terms of even their emotional maturity. So I think it's so interesting and wonderful that they have an opportunity to stay within the building with the folks that they have really built these relationships with, to then also support them in this transition from traditional 9/10 to what's considered early college for them.
I think another really important piece to mention is that we recognize that it's a lot, asking them to engage in pretty complicated ideas sometimes, and they're fully capable of doing that. But, they're still teenagers. They require support. So our teachers have office hours. We have a learning center that's open every day after school. We know a lot of our teachers do tutoring and small group instruction during lunchtime or during their free periods. And the students have access to the teachers because they're in the school building as well. I think that piece is really important too, is the supports that we provide for our students to make sure that they have the skills needed as well as the understanding to be able to do this.
Mhm. I love that acknowledgement of there's, of course, this rigor to the work that they are being asked to do. And so, how do we support them in all areas of their life to be able to be successful? Which leads me also to a question that I always used to think about working in schools. And one thing I always used to say to myself is, who is the young person that we're graduating? Thinking about the Bard High School graduate, who's the young person that you are graduating?
Well, ideally, it would be someone who can think independently, that can think critically and evaluate sources of information to be able to make an opinion for themselves based on the information that they have. I think we would want the student to have confidence in their academic ability and also know when to ask for help. I think that's also a really important skill. And then also a civic responsibility component. So someone who really acknowledges the responsibility that they have as a member of our society and understand that they can have a positive impact on their communities and the people that they interact with, and using their knowledge, their academic advantages for good. That would really be something that I would love to see in all of our students as well. And also knowing that they are able to find the tools that they would need should they feel like they need support.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. And these young people are graduating into a world where there's a lot that we are currently grappling with. There will be lots of demand to think about the ways in which they are engaging as responsible and thoughtful citizens in the world. I'm curious what you hear from students, though, about how they feel being at a school like Bard. And I can imagine there's conversations that they have from when they first get there as ninth graders. I'm thinking about some of these other conversations that they may be having as they reach that midpoint and they're transitioning from 10th grade to first year of early college. And then you think about as they are getting closer to graduation, I'm curious how they also are talking about their experience at Bard.
So I think that most students would say that it's challenging but rewarding. That's something that sort of a theme that we hear over and over. I know that you're asking the question about students who are here now, but for me, the real indicator for success is when the students come back as alumni. Usually it's that Wednesday before Thanksgiving where they all show up eager to tell us about either their first couple months at college, or it could be first year, second year, third year, and so on. And just hearing how prepared they were compared to their classmates when they got to their next institution, the confidence that they have once they realize, oh, 5-page papers. I can do that. I've written 10-page papers, things like that. And then also knowing that if we're going for STEM, that they've studied for hard science tests before. And I think that they would come back saying that they have an advantage over their peers and that they really appreciated the experiences that they had once they move on from here and they can reflect back on what their high school, early college experience was like at a BSEC.
Yeah, man, when the alumni come back, that's always a fun time. Also for us to be reflective about our work because also for us is when we're in it as teachers and administrators who are just trying to get through the calendar year with our young people. And so it actually is nice to have that moment where we are sort of like yanked out of that and have a moment of reflection for the work that we are doing with them as well.
Unfortunately, a lot of times when the students are in the moment, it can feel stressful. And that's another part of where we really need to support the students in terms of managing the workload and making sure that there aren't like 3 essays due on the same day, and managing those kinds of things for them, as well as providing them with making sure that they have an advisory and guidance counselor, and that we're teaching them time management skills and stress management. And that's all part of helping adolescents become independent as well, that I think we have to take seriously.
That's all part of the scaffolding, right, for their success, not just in terms of year 3 and 4 with you all, but as you say, moving into their if they transfer or if they move into their next collegiate experience will be valuable skills for them and beyond, for sure. I'm curious how they given that environment and also what you mentioned about it is rigorous, it is hard, it feels challenging. I'm curious how they relate to each other too. What do you witness in terms of how they either support each other or how they relate to one another in there's a shared experience that they're having that may feel different than their other friends who are in different public schools or private schools.
I would say that for the most part, the student community is pretty tightly knit, and maybe it's the challenge that brings them together. I think it's also intentionally built so that it's not competitive. I have worked in school districts where it's very competitive and the students are competing against each other. And I think that it's really important not to unintentionally have built that. So, for example, we don't have a valedictorian or a salutatorian or anything like that. All of our students are high achieving and doing rigorous work, and they're all trying to do their best. So we're going to celebrate everybody. They're getting an associate's degree at the end of 4 years if everything goes well and they meet the requirements. So I think that the students really value each other. And I think, again, it goes back to building the community of sharing ideas and accepting each other for who you are and the ideas that you bring into the classroom.
That's wonderful. I think in that there's also real respect for an individual student, giving them the space to reflect on that in ways that, again, that don't feel competitive. We are reaching the end of our time together, and you shared so many wonderful things. And I'm actually really excited to invite myself, if that's okay, to visit you all at your campus because I haven't seen this new site. But again, just really in awe of the work that is done and in awe of just how intentional and thoughtful this model is that you all are upholding to support your young people. In our last couple of minutes together, or any parting words that you'd want to share with other educators who may not be in environments where they have the BARD model, just want to make sure that there's nothing that we haven't uncovered or said that we think could be helpful for other educators who are listening in.
I think trust in the ability of your students and give them agency and independence and allow them to be themselves so that they can really grow into the person that they want to be.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so, so much. I know this will be the first year you all are graduating your first class. So that is a major accomplishment and milestone, again, for your young people, but also for all of the faculty and all of the staff who are at Bard High School, Early College, Bronx. So I wish you all the best as you move through the rest of this school year. And I thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much to Dr. Brutsaert for joining me and to all of our listeners for tuning in as well. As always, before we go, I wanted to leave you with some highlights from our conversation. Bard High School early college students take college classes in their final 2 years of high school and receive credits that they can use to transfer. And even as dual enrollment options have exponentially increased over the last decade, it's still not available in every school environment. And that's okay, because really, it's all the things that undergirds Bard's model that are the real takeaways. Dr. Brutsaert reminds us that when we trust in the capacity of young people to meet the moment, they often do. That is, trust in their ability to do rigorous, advanced work. Part of that trust includes we do our part in offering scaffolded opportunities for them to build their skills and competencies, not just in content areas, but also around writing, time management, pacing, and so much more to enable their success. And finally, some of the best educational spaces are co-created by students alongside the staff, faculty, and administrators that support them. For the adults, though, it requires that they have a mission-driven approach to education. For Dr. Brutsaert, ultimately, the goal is to graduate young people who are curious, engaged, active, thoughtful citizens, confident in their voice, and courageous in their convictions. And really, it doesn't get much more beautiful than that.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The What and Who of EDU. A big thanks again to Dr. Brutsaert for sharing their insights and to LaShawn Springer for leading such a powerful conversation. If this episode got you thinking differently about dual enrollment, trust, or how we build real world readiness into our classrooms, we want to hear about it. So drop us a voicemail at 512-765-4688, and we might just feature your voice in a future episode. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Your support means everything. I'm Marissa Bluestone, and this is the What and Who of EDU.